Aloha, lovelies. So I'm about to be doing an interview very shortly with this time. It will actually be from a guy's perspective. So this will be an interesting conversation. I've actually been interviewed by Jack a few times and he's a healer. He'll be able to tell you a little bit more about himself, and I'll put his details on this video as well in case you're interested in looking into more of what he's doing. So this will be a really interesting chat that we will be having, and I'm very excited to be able to see where Spirit takes this conversation. I'm also doing another one later today with another female and hoping to get some more males. So if you're interested and you're watching this, make sure that you message inspiredestiny4@gmail.com or newearthnewyournow@gmail.com if you're interested in being interviewed or potentially being a speaker on the upcoming Divine Masculine and Feminine Rising Summit. So I'm pretty sure Jack will be here soon and I'm totally excited. So thank you guys for watching. So when you're ready.
Okay. So my name is Jack. I'm from Rainbow Tribe Universal Healing here in Sydney, Australia. Enjoying a fantastic chat with Destiny, Cynthia. And yeah, let's get to it and have a good time.
Perfect. So I'm so excited. I was saying earlier in the intro to be able to talk to you about this. So we're going to be covering a few topics in relation to our experiences and our perspectives on the divine masculine and feminine rising. So the first thing that I really like to discuss, just to kind of, I don't know, get it all out in the open to do with what we're talking about, is when it comes to relationships, like what's your most memorable experiences around any relationship? So if you have to have the first thing that comes to your mind, what is the most memorable thing, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent? So just bring forward what you really feel when it comes to do with relationships. What comes to mind?
I guess it's very, very tough to pick which one, but I would say when it's in regards to positive things that come up in relationships, I think being able to see the trust and loyalty being built between two people, like a female feminine energy and a masculine energy, and being able to work together in exchanging your ideas and their ideas, and getting those aha moments where what you learn can actually radiate out to the other relationship types that you build later on in life. Understanding the psychology of not just yourself but other people, so you can approach it in the most productive manner without having arguments about every single thing just because, but being more straight to the point and growing cohesively together instead of breaking up because of something that's an external influence that's actually a way of separating the two. That's not coming from you or me, for example. But otherwise, negative. I mean, every relationship, including the relationship that you have with yourself, has its period of friction, because of maybe not knowing, being in the dark, and not understanding the grounds that you're walking around on. So it's a matter of, for example, in my view, just viewing, observing, and reading about different things, like different people's experiences, so you can kind of refer, but also get that balance from your own perspective, not searching outside per se only, but inside it yourself, being able to connect your energy inside of yourself and trusting your intuition. And through that intuition, opening yourself up to accepting and realizing what's within yourself, and not relying on outside sources as a lot of people do. So just not falling for any traps that a lot of people do at the moment. A lot of people are kind of projecting outside and searching for that savior that's going to kind of lay things to rest for them. Like someone threatening their own kind of well-being, trying to harm themselves in front of someone else and hoping that someone else is going to come to their rescue and actually diffuse that for them. So just take it as it comes, but try not to overstep and bite off too much. Then you can chew.
Yeah, I really like the topic that you're discussing there, and it's really interesting because I think that this is actually like a key, like what you're actually discussing right now, I think is actually a key contribution to the imbalance in the divine masculine and feminine, or the not necessarily embodiment of the divine aspects of the masculine and feminine, where we have been taught / given the example from quite young, just through society and ancestry, from this happening for generation and generation of watching and being taught and being told that we have to learn to be a certain way and that's how you be, rather than just what we are as children. We get told we have to learn how to be, particularly in school. And one of the things that I feel we get taught is we need to depend on others for information. We need to go outside of ourselves in order to have someone control us. So like the government, or to tell us what to do, because we are not smart enough or good enough or reliable enough source to know for ourselves. So I feel like this is a massive thing that's 100% interrelated to everything else, including what you're mentioning, where people have become so accustomed to thinking that they're not worthy, one. And two, that in order to get valuable information or to have things verified, they need to go and ask somebody else for validation or their opinion, or look for information in a 3D physical sense in order to know that it's true, in order to know that it's correct, rather than looking to their source connection to an even greater capacity of information that surpasses just this 3D reality. So it also goes into the soul and into the emotional and the mental bodies, but beyond just the physical vessel. And where we're told that the information has to be 100% related to the physical reality, with proof and information and other people's opinions and projections put onto it, I think makes us feel like in order to feel that love, or in order to know for certain that we're worthy, we have to seek this type of thing outside of ourselves. And it's something that I guess it takes time for us to release, and to be able to also release for the collective. So it's great that we're aware of this and that we're discussing it. And this is exactly the reason why I want to have more of these discussions, because if someone relates, it may help them to see an aspect of their shadow where they've been thinking about it, but they didn't actually understand, I guess, the core root that kind of ripples out and affects how we present ourselves and how we connect to people, and what we believe is, worth loving or worth accepting within ourselves. And when we can realize that it's more important to go to ourselves first for these things, that's where we realize that we never have to go seeking outside, and anything we want is always there. And that's when things become more liberating, more fulfilling, more freeing, where we can step into our sovereign power, not completely alone, because we're 100% connected to the source energy that we actually have the chance to embody, that is actually, an aspect of source that is our true form. And when we have that knowing, we start to manifest the embodied qualities of that, which is knowing that we're divine, and knowing that every other being is equally as divine, but to go first to source, which is the best way to go, is to go within. And that will then give you all the tools, resources, information that you could ever need. What's your I guess, comments and take on that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that are happening at the moment, I mean, there's a lot of reflection going on in this year. as to where we want to go, which direction. A lot of echoes from the past in terms of what people do you want to bring into your life to build the network and connections, the relationships, in terms of the collective, in terms of if you want to look at it from a macro level, the society that we live in is like a big organism, and as well as the universe. And in order to be able to really embody, we need to be able to connect with our energy, and let things kind of flow out and kind of purge and purify, and not be resistant to it. Realize the actions and consequences of things. I mean, for me personally, in order to really connect and realize what I'm going through, it came to a matter of getting rid of every layer of illusion and toxicity that I'm feeding myself. So when we want to connect to source, then that energy can come in effectively, and trust what you're feeling by just being mindful and going out in nature and feeling what it is that's actually coming to interact with you more and more. And it builds up to the point of where it becomes more of a second nature, and become comfortable with anything that comes your way, knowing that you're connected to the surroundings. So not regretting that you're an empath. It's a huge benefit to be able to connect as an empath, and whatever comes in, you can analyze and see what it is. Like, do I want to grow forth and embody what my dad or my mum used to do at home that wasn't beneficial to me? Do I want to act that way to other people, or my children or whatever? And then when you realize that kind of feed the energy that you want to have, more so, kind of as a motivational tool. And yeah, just don't be gullible to everything. Always question and have fun. Don't try to be too serious about it. And, be open so that the energies that come in will be the best match possible for
Very
what you want to do. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. So I was curious as well on that type of a note, talking about like being really consciously aware and all these reflections that we're having. I'm wanting to have a little bit of a conversation about our kind of perspectives on what we kind of feel is the reason, and our kind of viewpoint of the divine feminine and the divine masculine rising. So like, how are we seeing it rising around us? How are we experiencing it rising within us? And different things like that. Because one of the reasons that I felt Spirit guided me to have these discussions and to have the summit that's coming up about this is because I feel both an important topic for people to realize. Secondly, an important thing for us to come further into as a collective. And thirdly, there are certain things that are underlying around whether people are rising or in it, like struggling to embody this potential for rising, that is affecting almost everything within, what our goal is, which is to feel more unified. And this has created the duality. So having a less balanced divine masculine and feminine has created, I guess, this duality of good and bad, black and white type of a thing, rather than being balanced internally. So what's your kind of experience and also your perspective of of seeing this happen or experiencing this within yourself?
Within myself, being open to expressing yourself fully, more so, instead of like attaching yourself to the stereotypical, I am not allowed to cry, I'm not allowed to, express my frustrations. And that in turn kind of mutates and builds up within myself, or anyone for that matter, and creates a disharmony within myself. It's not bad to, physically cry in front of people. If anything, it inspires the other guy or girl to actually, it's okay to actually do that. That feels nice to actually be able to be authentic. And in turn, when you're able to express more of your emotions, your feminine kind of self, then the masculine feels more comfortable. The emotional part of it is actually very powerful. The heart itself is very powerful in terms of allowing you to manifest the situations or reality around you. As we know, it's all about energy and frequency, and if our emotion or energy in motion is restricted, then it's not able to flow properly. So the masculine is very much, it can do only so much. It can do some physical structures, building stuff and getting some stuff done, but ultimately the expression, going forth in unifying and creating strong relationships, it is very important to have the masculine and feminine together, the yin yang, pretty much in flow. But otherwise, other than that, how can you just by not attaching to stereotypes, to the structures that you've been taught, and slowly letting that kind of detach from you and flow away, and knowing that whatever people tell you or whatever people say, it does not matter. What matters is what comes from you, from within you. That's going to be the main kind of source of trustworthy information, directly experiencing, and then people will in turn respect and recognize what is being radiated out, because that's what everyone wants. They just want to be kind of accepted and be able to be alive, feel alive, instead of feeding themselves in other triggers to kind of get an adrenaline rush or whatever. To have that kind of be a sustainable kind of force, and in turn creating harmony, like seeing that if I help you, you help me, we help each other, and together we amplify the results that we want to achieve in the future. The structures, the art, the beauty of everything that is. So it's nice and healthy all around.
So very much just about creating that balance within. So what's your experience been of being able to see this like occurring outside you? So have you had an experience, like for example, I've seen myself where a lot of the guys that I've attracted recently as friends or just people in my reality, they're a lot more effeminate. So in certain ways, so they're expressing themselves more. They have long hair. They're doing like yoga and chanting, and they're becoming a lot more spiritual, which is usually the type of thing that the women do. And then for myself, I'm seeing until, the women start tapping into their feminine, even beforehand, like particularly myself, they'll weigh in their masculine. And as they're learning to come back into the feminine, so the feminine rises, these women are becoming balanced as their androgynous being. So I'm seeing where now the aspects of the men are actually coming to a more balanced place, where they're seeing where the women are balanced, and they're actually starting to come back not only into their feminine, but facing the shadow of the masculine. So for me, I've felt like, because this is like an ancestral karma that we've had for so long, where the feminine energy has been suppressed in both males and females. So it's not just women being suppressed, it's just the feminine energy that we have actually experienced. I've seen this, and I know particularly a lot of women seem to think, and then I feel like that can also be where if they're not balanced within their masculine, they'll judge men as in it's the men's fault, when it's actually not men. It's just the energy itself has become more prominent and out of balance. And it was also allowed to be out of balance until we're now coming back where when we're balancing ourselves, it's balancing this battle that's happening outside us in the world. And I feel like so much stuff is coming up to purge. So people are seeing all of this stuff that seems to be such a duality battle and so like chaotic everywhere, where everyone's fighting each other, where it's happening within us, where we're not actually facing a part of this war. Like if we're against a particular part of what's going on, it's like we're against that part of ourselves. We're not taking responsibility that we created it. Excuse me. And then when we do start taking responsibility, we start seeing how we can have this positive effect where we're balanced, how the things around us naturally start to balance no matter where we go. And I've seen where I've been starting to attract more men who are coming out of their feminine and starting to balance their shadow aspects. So I was doing a vitamin C purge, and I was traveling with a bunch of males of different ages that I met. Some I was very connected to, some, they had sexual desires, and I was choosing to be celibate because I'm studying Tantra and I'm doing a lot of a different work where I've made the decision to myself that I'll only connect in that sort of a capacity with someone who I feel it's a soul contract, that they're studying Tantra and it's for our soul's growth and it's for healing for both of us. So if that's not the vibration they're at, I've usually been saying, like, I can't offer more than 100% unconditional love and connection as a family soul connection that we have. So it was a particularly interesting situation when I was doing a vitamin C purge, because that entails that your cells purge everything and you become overly emotional. And this for me has been a major challenge because I was way in my masculine energy. And then as I was learning to come into my feminine in order to do it, I actually was suppressing my masculine. And initially this was creating this duality with some of the men who I had previously had in my life, particularly my father, until I learned to balance my own masculine and find love and acceptance and change the way I viewed what is actually acceptable from men and see it in the divine rather than just in the lower, I guess you could say, chakras. So as I started to become more emotional, this was really challenging for me, not just for people in general to let myself cry, but particularly to men, because the feminine was suppressed. So I wasn't allowed to cry as a child, and I was a very sensitive child. You can probably relate, and I'm sure a lot of you all can relate to, both men and women, that expressing emotions is usually seen as irrational, is usually seen as not acceptable in some places, as annoying, as frustrating to people, and it's something that they don't really want to deal with, or if they feel that way, they'll go out and suppress it rather than being able to let it come out and purge and heal. So as this was happening, it was both a weight off my shoulders and me facing a fear. So I had some form of resistance, and as that resistance was there, even with these really conscious guys, I was actually confronting them, how ready they were to step into their masculine as a protective nature and non-judgmental. Where at first I was actually given a lot of judgment for me being egotistical, for simply having like boundaries and saying, hey, this is something I need support with. We're together. I've been supporting in this way. This is what I require. And I need to be allowed to be emotional right now because I'm purging. It's not a blame. It's not you've done something wrong. It's just you can either be around me and be a supportive person there, or you can choose to not be around me. But while I'm doing this purge, I'm going to be more sensitive and emotional. And I'd really be grateful if you could just be that extra bit supportive, even if it's just holding space and not saying anything. So these were the types of discussions that I had to have, because every time that I was purging emotionally, at first, like some of the guys would turn around and say I was being egotistical. And I'm like, well, no, I'm actually just expressing that this is how I'm feeling, and you're choosing to take it however you choose to. And it was, I guess, lessons for them. Like, we were all reflecting each other and also acknowledging the reflection that we were seeing in ourselves from all of the people that we were around. And I was also grateful because a lot of them, in a lot of ways, were embracing their feminine energy. So that's a lot of my recent experience around, and that was quite full on, around how I see the masculine, the divine masculine and feminine rising within both women and men in both energies. So is there an experience you have particularly with other people that you've been able to see where there's actually a change happening?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, late last year, I went to a shaman drumming circle up in Newcastle. And it was an opportunity to be in a circle where everyone was accepted, and they all came out with what they were feeling like at that moment, to be openly vulnerable, in order to, like you said, to be able to be in their most authentic self, what they're actually going through, instead of filtering themselves. There's certain people that were, for 50 years, they were like, businessman in a suit, but on the inside they felt like, oh, I feel like I'm a female. I want to express that. And they're, freely dressing up in a dress and what you usually have on when you're a female, and just talking through and being able to kind of embody that. But it's like going from that extreme and then coming back into the middle eventually, as you kind of allow yourself time and not rushing it. For example, for one person that was there. And it was a space where everyone was later on confronting or sitting in front of each other with a bit of earth, and actually looking each other in the eye and acknowledging and showing support by saying, you are beautiful, I see that you are this magnificent being with this potential. This is my observation of what you've expressed tonight, and I'm supporting you 100% through what you're going through. So that's one experience, like being in that space of giving recognition and getting recognition for what you really are, and to be able to more so embody that going forward. Even if you're not within that space, you're outside, you can kind of refer back and have that as a metaphorical hug or energetic hug that's holding you as you go along and connect with other people.
That's so beautiful.
That's one experience.
That's so beautiful, and it reminds me. It reminds me of an experience that I had that was really powerful, and I'm going to do a name drop here, where one of my spiritual mentors, like I consider him a mentor. He's not actually professionally my mentor, but his name's Jafayehl Slater. I don't know if you know him. And he does several events for people, both business and spiritual, where some of them are like at night, a group of conscious people coming together and sharing stories and eating really healthy, clean, organic food that's prepared and having water. And they do like healing, shamanic drumming ceremonies. And initially the day event actually helps people to bridge business and spirituality. But on one of the times that I went to, in which I made some really close connections with people, and it was all just sitting on the floor, connecting, almost like sitting around a fire type of a thing. And the activity we were asked to do was for guys. All the guys were given chocolate, and they were told to go and select a random girl to sit in front of, lock eyes, and apologize for everything the masculine energy has done to the feminine and give the chocolate. which is interesting because today here is Valentine's Day, and that actually may be where the whole idea of the giving of the chocolate is. I did an article on Saint Valentine because a lot of the way that things are propagated, like Christmas and birthdays and everything else, in order to accommodate to spending more money and being part of consumerism, really gets taken way out, including marriage. And that's another topic that I want to discuss with you. But it was really beautiful to be able to see that and experience that. It was actually quite emotional for me. And I was so honored to all of the men who stood up that were there to take responsibility, not only for themselves, for something they may have done or may not have done, but for the whole collective of the masculine energy to come to the feminine and say, look, I am really sorry for what has been done and that you have been suppressed. And to be able to offer like an offering of this apology in the way of chocolate, which is something that's really rewarding, and to give each other a hug. And it's like from a total stranger, and to have that connection. And I know soul gazing is so important as well for us to do, that I feel when I've done it with both men and women, I've done it with myself in the mirror. It reaches where you connect to the soul, because the eyes are the gateway to the soul. And I feel like that's so powerful. So I love that you shared that experience. And I think it's happening more and more, where people are connecting to their souls. They're creating new relationships to themselves, where they're feeling less the need to find somebody else, that when they come together with somebody else, it's more about being whole and whole. And the first interview that I did with one of my female friends, she was saying that's what she aspires to. And I think that this is where we're coming to as a collective, where we're not seeking like love as in what love we can get rather than what we're taking from people. It's what love we can give, because we've given ourselves so much love that it's overflowing. And that's where I feel it comes from a place of balance, because as you balance your masculine and feminine, if you know that you desire or need anything from, women or men, or even the desire to want to be a different sex, like what you were talking about, you go within, because you have both within you. And I believe when it comes to the twin flame thing, which I'd love your perspective on, it's kind of, in order to connect with your twin flame, you need to connect with the energetic fragment that lives within you, because they're a fragmental part of your soul. So when you connect to that part of your soul and you help to heal it, it energetically heals them, therefore giving the gateway for them to meet you, for you to do whatever work with your soul purpose, and connecting to raise the vibration and unity consciousness of the planet and of this star system. And I know that you're very connected to multiple, star systems like myself, and we're quite related in that sense. So I'm just wanting to hear like your experience and your perspective on, really connecting to those both energies within yourself, and then also potentially in the sense of like relationship and connectivity, where you feel like there's been a change in you from relationship to relationship as you've balanced and done the inner spiritual work and healing and self-love that you've done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. Being able to open up, especially your heart chakra, which is like the portal of going towards connecting to your highest chakra, which is to the soul. Being able to admit and recognize, sit with yourself in some capacity, wherever it is. If you think your space is in the toilet, sitting there and thinking for a bit, and when the emotion arises, that's really really tender. Don't try to view it instead of straight away pushing it down like you would normally, and let it come up and feel that energy, feel that stream coming up. And when it comes up to your mind's eye, letting that kind of be an opportunity to say to that energy, I recognize you, and I release that which does not benefit myself or the collective or the person I'm connecting to, whether it be my twin flame or a group of people or recent people that I'm interacting with.
Can I just pause you for a second there and come back to that? I just think someone was calling me. Just a moment. Okay, so continue what you were saying. So about really opening your heart and allowing yourself to, I think you were talking even about being vulnerable and connecting in a deeper way.
Yeah, when you're in a space that you're comfortable in, like I mentioned, being in your own toilet, for example, in the morning, when you're sitting there thinking for a bit and you feel that energy that's been suppressed come up, instead of pushing it back down as a reflex, try to feel that energy come up, even if it feels like it's a sharp pain. And when it comes up to your mind's eye, just say to it, I recognize you, the pain from that particular situation I let go of, and I release it as it doesn't serve me anymore. And then, for example, you can take a nice deep breath and visualize as you take a deep breath, you are breathing in that new energy, that kind of love for yourself, feeding yourself love straight from the source, for example, and making an affirmation as to what it is that you want to from now on embody. Keep it simple, one step at a time, and then going with that. And you can do that as often as you like. And from there, doing it each day, one small thing builds up a lot over a 12-month period even. So every step counts. And as you do that, your emotional capability of expressing yourself increases more and more. Your heart space, for example, can expand to a great extent. And from that, when you're going around, people feel that and react to that, and recognize that, and that way you can kind of attract those type of people that are in that same kind of vibration that can give you that extra support as you go through it, without actually having to scream for it, so to speak. Like help me, like cry wolf, because like anything, it's about the vibration that you radiate out of yourself. And people, without even you saying anything, they'll come up to you. For example, I've had people, when I do voluntary work, come up to me and look at me and say, how can you be so happy? How can you feel at ease to yourself? Whereas I feel this way most of the time. So, yeah.
Your energy's actually been shifting by what you've been talking about. It's quite fascinating. Like the total light within the screen changed too. Yeah. So like as you were talking about it, it's actually changed your whole energy.
Oh yeah, definitely, no doubt about it. I mean, the beauty of being in the moment, in the present, instead of worrying if what is coming in the future is going to be good. Like I've kind of expressed recently in some of my illustrations, like my little memes that I create as they come, is it's all about now. It's all about feeling the moment, and putting, as we do, put words to it, so it solidifies for yourself what it is what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are having echoes come up from past relationships, whether it be male or female, and it's causing them to question whether or not they should pursue that in a destructive manner, or is there another way? They might not be sure at that moment. So just know that if the darkness arises within you, know that the trigger that came to you is, let's say, possibly trying to feed off you and trying to kind of keep you in that vibration. And in that moment, you can go, I choose to embody more of my higher self, my love. And I know if I go in that direction, then that other energy is gonna dissipate. I don't have to do anything per se in that situation to get rid of it. It's just gonna dissipate as you increase the other vibration that you want to attract. And not say I don't want this anymore, I don't have, but what I want is coming towards me in every moment. What I want to do is based upon the first move that I do, the action. So tomorrow I'm going to go and do this, and that's going to be my first step towards building on that and feeding myself the music, the vibration of the music that I want. That's going to kind of inspire me and shift the energy within me. That's going to help me kind of, shine the light on a consistent basis. And have a good time. Don't take life too seriously. I mean, I do take it seriously. I mean, people joke around with me in my place, and I catch myself being too much of an old man, old wizard or something, and I'm like, I just laugh at myself and say it's okay, and just try to open yourself up in that moment, and that's beautiful.
It certainly is. Yeah, it certainly is. And I'm going to bring us back to another topic that I touched on before, because I'd love your perspective since you're the first guy that I've actually spoken to for these interviews. And it's to hopefully keep it a little bit brief, because the videos I'm attempting to keep to like about an hour at this stage anyway, because I know there's so many things we can discuss on this. Like, we started on this topic when we had our interview together, and I was really looking forward to being able to discuss it more in detail. So the first type of topic that I want to briefly discuss with you, being that I feel like you have a similar mind frame around this to me, but if not, it'd be great to discuss it with someone who has maybe even like both sides, is to do with how our ancestors and our generations have both viewed marriage and how they've gone along with what they were told was how you were meant to connect with somebody, and then also like what your perspective is and also experience in the shift to do with sex, because this is the type of thing that I feel has caused like one of the biggest woundings collectively, where it's become, particularly with the suppression of the feminine and also with a lot of porn out there, where it's caused a lot of sexual abuse. And I was discussing with someone else the other day, and they agreed that even in relationships now, people are doing stuff that's so normal that they don't even realize it's sexual abuse, when they're wanting to gain something from the other being and not respecting them as a sovereign being that's both connected but also a separate fragment to them. So what's your view of marriage, and in response also in respect to where you feel like as a species we're evolving in our sacred relationships and our connections and our intimate partnerships with other people?
For me, I mean, the current shift is more less about giving the impression that we have to, from both sides, be able to do something in bed to actually impress someone, to hold on to someone. We've forgotten the way that we can connect emotionally to the other person. As you said, that pornography has played a big role in kind of separating the communication between the two people,
and also giving a false ideal of male and female, so that we have this skewed and almost perverted view of both sex and also what the female and male represent. I feel like that is one of the keys when it comes to stuff like that, and I feel that's potentially deliberate. Sorry for interrupting. So continue. No.
But yeah, definitely, like in most parts of society, they do portray the male and female in a particular situation to be separate. Like they're just coming together to do this and to achieve a climax, and that's about what sex is about, but which is not realistic. And that's where you see a lot of people in public, especially two guys going to a beach, and you just look at them and you see on their body language that their impression and perception is so distorted. It's all about the act instead of the relationship of sacredness. I mean, think about it this way: if you're going into relations with multiple people, you are exchanging energy in each moment, and that energy flows through to every other person that other person is connected with.
Yeah, soul fragments and any imbalances too.
Yeah, so you're inflicting damage on yourself to a degree which kind of blocks you from really being able to connect with yourself,
and also the other person as well. Which that's another thing. Well. That's another thing that I guess comes into where we're potentially sexually abusing other people, where it's so common for like really intense sexual abuse nowadays, even like in youth and especially with the suppression within religion and all of the stuff that's coming out now to do with like priests and everything, that people are so shocked. But it's been happening for a long time. It's just now we're actually making these discussions to be able to consciously see our shadows as a collective, because we all have, we all have these lower parts of ourselves that we can give into and let it control us, or we can aspire to something higher that's even more pleasurable, but we just don't know how to access that because we're still stuck in such a 3D capacity of what pleasure and connection truly means.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, no one's perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, really. It's all an experience, and being able to discern the situation is probably one of the most valuable tools that you can have, and that's where healing the heart itself comes in, so that the energy can be most effective. And when you're walking into a situation, the first thing you do is just take a nice deep breath and feel what's coming towards you, and your heart will let you know if it's a hurtful energy, then it's going to be uncomfortable, going to retract. But if it's something that's positive, it's going to help you expand yourself, expand your energetic field to connect with the other energy, whatever it is, the earth itself, the minerals, and the different entities, as well as the physical humans that we are at this point. And other than that,
so what else? Express a little bit more about your perspective of marriage and why you feel we're going as a species in the way of so like I'll give you a bit of my perspective. From my perspective, when I was growing up, I questioned a lot. I wanted to do things differently. It's part of my blueprint and genetic, I guess, makeup for this lifetime. Kind of put like a spanner in the works type of a person. And then I started, you could say almost when I started getting into relationships, I started falling into the whole collective ancestral karma to clear out. And at that point I went, I want to get married, because I was told by my dad that he would only come to my wedding if, I had it in a Catholic church and if he approved of the person who I was marrying. So for me, it was like this type of ideal fantasy, as well as the idea of getting dressed up and being pretty and having all these people. So it was all of the like lower energy parts of how I felt I was going to be seen and felt as loved. And then when I started actually loving myself and I actually wanted to feel unconditional love, I decided marriage wasn't for me. And it was because I don't feel like the constitution of marriage is actually on a basis of unconditional love. Even though it says you're with the person forever, it's A, it doesn't usually happen that way. And B, usually it's on the basis that we own each other. So we have to be with each other forever. And I feel this creates a cage, this creates resistance. And the actual karma connected to these words and this binding, this marital binding, actually restricts the two souls' potential. So, for example, even in relationship, one changes and the other one either feels like they need to change or get left behind, or one feels like they need to stay behind in order to stay with that person because they feel like they've said that they had to and they want to stick to their word, whether it's beneficial for either of them or not. And that's where, for me, I feel like as a species, when marriage is not working and relationships are breaking down and there's this huge external duality battle from what's also happening inside, marriage is not really supporting us on a spiritual level. It's like a really limited box of what we're capable of as a being, a species, a spirit. So I'm wanting your perspective of marriage and relationships and how you think as a species we should be, or you would like to be, connecting with another being in a more intimate capacity.
Yeah, for me personally, I grew up in a family where my mum and dad didn't partake or didn't view the whole commercialized idea of going into a church and, you know, having that event. They confirmed, or they came together in a sign of, let's say, exchanging rings per se, to show their loyalty, their, you know, dedication. I'm dedicating myself to you by giving you this special gift as a sign of my focus, that I love you, that I want to build this relationship. Marriage itself, yeah, definitely. I've seen some posters out there that kind of express that marriage is nothing but another form of slavery, like locking each other within a structure that's not really helping us kind of explore, you know, the experience between two people, or the experience between more than two people. I think people, you know, marrying the first person that they connect with doesn't allow for them both to go out and connect with other people. It's like, I don't want you to go out and connect with the opposite sex because it makes me feel this way. I can respect that, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't build, it doesn't expand and help you grow as a person if you're going to be confined in a box, even a physical box like a house, and just being you and him, or him and him, or she and she. For me personally,
from my perspective, and sorry to interject there, but something that I'd like to express is, from my perspective, when we come from that place of wanting ownership over someone else, or feeling jealousy, this comes from a state of, I guess, fear and ego. And I'm not gonna say, you know, I don't like going and bagging out the ego, but when you're letting the ego run the show and the fear run the show, it's actually not coming from a higher perspective of what's best for you in love and what's best for the other person in love. Because on the highest capacity of love, you want what's best for both you and the other person. And wanting them to not do something because you feel that it hurts you and because you have wounds around that is just, for me, an opportunity to see where you can heal yourself. Not to say that if somebody's behaving in a disrespectful way that makes you feel like they're not going to respect you while they're with you, or they're not going to communicate what's happening within them and around them, you know, or potentially cheating. That's not what I'm saying is okay. What I'm saying is, where there is a capacity for complete love and acceptance, there is better option and opportunity for communication, and to express these feelings is important, but then to not expect the person to 100% turn around and stop doing it to them, for them to, I guess, allow you to be supported through healing this particular aspect of your path. And like you were saying earlier, not necessarily repeating the same cycles is something that's really important. But for me, and I guess even if someone does get married and they're getting married for the right reasons, and it's nothing to do with society or pressure or trying to prove that they'll be together forever or prove to the other one that they're committed, I feel like it can work where people come together as conscious beings and they decide to get married, yes, because they both want to, but it's not actually to conform to the current societal, this is what you need to do. And it's in a more conscious way where they almost transmute and change the energetic attachment and the karma to the word. So continue on what you were saying about, you know, the feeling and the need to own somebody or to have an expression of connection that you're committing to that person.
Yeah, I mean, it's well and good, and it's important to be able to communicate first and foremost, of course, as expressed. And then it is always nice to be shown in one form that you're wanting to make this work, and to be able to express back and forth between each other what kind of information that you're coming across, so that it, like you said, it's to benefit both the masculine and feminine, or the masculine and feminine within each other. For me personally, my connection with my twin flame or twin mirror soul, it's an opportunity to kind of balance more so the masculine, helping each other heal, and the feeling of being able to connect so deeply with that energy to the two souls. It's very intense. It's a tricky situation as well, because we're both learning as we go along. And sometimes we assume too much, and especially if we're both dreamers, or we like to imagine things instead of like try to kind of have a balance of groundedness, what's really there, what's happening at that moment, and what, instead of like, what if this happens or whatever. One sec, I just have to connect my charger.
Okay. So continue.
Yeah. So with the twin flame, it's a bit tricky. It's, for me personally, I mean, I've always been curious since I was the age of 3 years old, wanting to understand the atmosphere that I'm inhabiting, and moving up to relationships and connections between different beings, and how I can best utilize the experience in terms of learning for myself, and then radiating that information, as I like to say, to each and every person that I'm connecting with, and helping them and seeing them thrive. And I view it on a higher level as a big organism, a collection of organisms turning into one big organism. So wherever we are, kind of like the white cells within the system that are helping out to kind of harmonize everything else. And then when it's in harmony, then we can kind of enjoy the experience in the abundance without creating the separation and dualistic kind of construct. But yeah, it's an interesting experience, and the twin flame kind of concept, it's exciting, and we moved from that to just taking it one day at a time and not trying to fly away with things too much, and try to realize what it is that we can learn from what's going on at that moment, instead of getting angry unnecessarily.
Yeah, very true. And it's also, it's not just about romance as well when it comes to the twin flame relationships. The recent twin flame that I've connected with, because from my experience and understanding we have, which a lot of people might have a shock to them, but do the research for yourself, is that we actually have 12 twin flames, like the flare of life. We have other fractal elements from first fractalization of the cell, and then when it fractalizes again, it becomes like the twin flames, and it fractalizes and it becomes like the twin cells, and fractalizes again and becomes your soulmates. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in a relationship capacity, but there's always this polarization where you get to learn different aspects of yourself through the other being. And it's interesting because my most recent twin flame and I are just friends, and both of us are working on healing our sexual like relationship to sex, and like the way that we use sex in a more spiritual way. And both of us at different times in our life had sexual abuse. So for us, this kind of allowed us to really look into those chakras and the healing collectively. So it's really transitioned from when I had sexual relationships when I was growing up, before I realized all of this, where all of these issues kind of came, until I was able to see them from a different perspective. So I was really wanting to just briefly get like your experience and your perspective from what sex, from a guy's perspective as well, what has changed in sex since you have, I guess, woken up. So since you've become more consciously aware of what's happening, what do you feel has been the biggest difference, and what is something that you aspire towards?
Some of the biggest things in regards to exchanging sexual relations will have to be what kind of person that you're kind of associating yourself with, that you're connecting with, in terms of the not just unconsciously going and inviting someone into your space to do such a thing, but connecting with them on an energetic level where you're both in that kind of state of mutual exchange of love, where it's to do with respecting each other's bodies, and being healthy about how you approach the situation, instead of being rough and ready and thinking that it's normal to do certain things. Instead, it's just creating trauma or unconscious trauma to that body. I don't know, just talking about the experience and expressing what you both felt, and I guess being appreciative of that person actually being in your life and connecting with you, instead of it being another kind of situation that you've kind of initiated, and nurturing each other. Like if something comes up during an experience, recognize it and give that person support in that moment, instead of cutting that person off and saying, I don't want to do this. This is not what I planned. Go with the flow a little bit more, if not fully. And, just not being kind of insensitive. I mean, we all have times where we're a bit insensitive in our relationships, and we should kind of recognize that, and
where we're also, I guess, being insensitive to ourselves, and then that reflects in the relationship.
Yeah. I mean, if someone's going through a situation, try to kind of come back to it and say, I apologize for doing that action, or saying that. I've been very much open at the moment with feeling and the energy, feeling the different types of people, the relationships I have with people that are kind of trying to find themselves and looking for guidance, and try to kind of read it as it comes in, and not kind of think that's your energy and that's because of something that has to do with you, but it's not. And not kind of snapping at the other person later on that you're coming up to and talking to. But if it happens, just say straight away, I'm really sorry.
Yeah. So taking responsibility, taking conscious responsibility.
Definitely taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what else can we say?
So I have another question, and it's in response to like being that we're talking about the topic of like the divine masculine and feminine and the sex topic, which seems to be one of those things that, you know, it's either spoken about in a really way that, you know, really negative way, or a way that you're not supposed to talk about it. So I've been doing a lot of research, into Tantra, and it's not just to do with sex. It's all to do with like energy. And I was curious if you have, I don't know, come across any experiences in your conscious, I guess, awakening where you've been able to utilize certain even things that you've just learned not related to sex, like breath work and healing and energetic stuff like that. And you've been able to take that type of a thing into an intimate relationship, and how that's potentially benefited you and the other person.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started doing energy work and getting kind of prompted to really take a chance, do a beta test pretty much on putting intention from your mind into your physical body, and kind of feeling the exchange of energy from one person to another, and consciously kind of cycling the stagnant energy for other person to yourself, and then releasing that out so it doesn't get stuck. The feeling, for example, for me was it was like I was receiving their thought forms, their structure of thinking. I was very obsessive at first. And as we all have that, you know, monkey mind when we start out throughout life, that kind of helped me to more deeply connect and feel empathically. I mean, instead of it being in a feeling of attack, it's like a download, or a stream download into yourself, and then coming out and learning what it is they can learn from that other person, giving you that exchange, and moving to present day, when connecting with my twin flame, it helps to be able to relate, be more compassionate, understanding of the other person's kind of state of mind and what they've gone through, and really try to choose the words that will kind of help that person feel that they can express themselves freely without being judged by what they've gone through. And by being able to relate and look at their perspective, then that helps to build that deeper connection outside of a sexual context. And I think that's what kind of makes you feel, appreciative of the kind of connection that you have. It's more exciting to have that relationship get deeper and more connected, and you both kind of accepted than the momentary interaction of the physicality that we're experiencing, and that union of two bodies is a result of having that strong respect for each other and appreciation of the experience, and the energy that you're bringing together is going to emanate into the earth plane, the field, that's going to help to uplift Mother Earth and the collective, and in result, as you kind of heal yourself together or individually. So yeah, that's one thing that I've kind of really appreciated, and it's been great, and it's getting deeper and deeper.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, I find it interesting. The thing that come to my mind when I was discussing this was when I connected with one of my twin flames, before my current one that's a friend. We were in a relationship, and it caused a lot of, I guess, resistance in a sense, because I decided that I was wanting to connect with someone in a deeper way. And we already identified that we were twin flames, but I still felt like he was in some way connected to like the box of what a relationship could be, and attempting to fit that role, even if it wasn't him. And my question to you from I guess that type of experience that I've had is, what has been the most challenging experience since you've woken up when it comes to the opposite sex? So for me, I've had quite a lot where I feel like a lot of the time I connect with people on a really deep level, and they're not necessarily into spirituality in a sense. And it's almost like the feeling to, you know, not necessarily hide your spirituality, but almost not delve deeper into it, because it's not the same thing that they're doing. If you happen to meet someone and connect, to see where it's going to go. And like, how have you felt that it's affected your decision making in, I guess, either having sex or being in a relationship with somebody?
I mean, when you're kind of delving deep into the journey of opening up and being more receptive to build a richer experience, it's, for me, like, I'm thinking most people have had a challenge to connect deeper on a deeper level with anyone else that's not into that kind of field. It's just people aren't prepared to kind of go deeper, because they are in fear, they're in pain, they're in fear of what they're gonna encounter if you're the one that's kind of poking and prodding, so to speak, or trying to walk into that space. That is a challenge. I mean, I've continuously each day strive to learn something new, and it's been really hard to be in a relationship where you're going forward, but the other person's stuck in watching drama series and people yelling at each other, and causing that person's apparently cheating on that person, blah blah blah. And then there's the paradigm of celebrityism. It just naturally, you separate each other. You separate from each other naturally. It's not something that is always a conscious thing, but if you're conscious enough, then you're seeing that kind of play out, and you realize, well, it is what it is. And if that other person's choice is not to kind of see where you want to go, in what direction, and that it's going to benefit them as well, then you take that experience, that relationship, as a lesson, and take what you can from it, and as well as being considerate and give back to them, maybe talk to them a little bit, make them understand a bit clear why you're taking that action, why you're choosing to separate from them and going on your journey, and why it is so hard for you. Even if they're choosing to block that out, it's their choice. It's free will. You can't make someone come with you on that journey. Ultimately, you can plant the seed, and that's about it, and go on and give them support and love and wish them the best, etc., etc.
I 100% agree. Yeah, so it's been something that I've done a lot of in this journey, but I was just curious about whether or not what the most challenging experience that you've had personally would be with the opposite sex since you've woken up.
It's just the emotional attachment that you have to that person is very challenging, because you're hoping for something long term, something that's going to develop, but a lot of people are kind of comfortable in one spot and repeating cycles, and you're watching those cycles play out each week, and that's what, for me personally, or other people that are wanting to grow, makes it hard to see and look at, and seeing the emotional turmoil that gets perpetuated, and ultimately you don't want to be part of that. And that's probably the most challenging, and just being accepted as well, being accepted with whoever you connect to and you want to develop that connection with, is really hard.
So would you say that it's been more challenging to find someone that's compatible since you've woken up than it was when you were asleep? Like, do you feel like there's more people who are like ready to get into a relationship or be intimate with somebody, if they're not particularly following a path of becoming more and more conscious? Do you feel like it's more of a challenge to meet the right person, when you wake up?
Yeah, it is because a lot of the people that you later on connect with when you're coming to that conscious kind of experience, a lot of people are very destructive to themselves. In turn, they kind of project themselves where they're at onto you and causing that emotional kind of trauma or emotional damage to you unconsciously. And yeah, it just that's what kind of hampers being able to connect with people. You kind of seclude yourself to a degree because the other person's patterns kind of perpetuate destructive kind of situations. And yeah, I find certain people are like, I want to find someone that's exactly like this, like exactly like me, that wants to go exactly in this direction. But to be honest, the realization is that it's pretty boring to have the same polarities connecting. You got to have a bit of variety within the relationship so that you can kind of gain perspective on things that you might have missed. And that's where the union comes in. So you can kind of help each other kind of balance out spiritually as you go along.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that we've had like this amazing chat and I've been so happy. It's been such a great, I guess, variety of different things that we've covered. So I just wanted to thank you so much. And I know that everybody who's watching will have got whatever they need to get from this interview. And I look forward to, I guess, having some more interviews with you in the future because it's such a varied and interesting, I guess, array of experiences and topics and understanding that we have. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, and it's been an honor, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you.